We're now going to continue on with episode 3. And this episode is called Consciousness and the Two-Track Mind. Um, Consciousness, which we use the term all of the time, what it actually means is, definition-wise, awareness of ourselves and our environment. Over the course of your day, your life, you flick between various states of consciousness. They could include sleeping, waking, and various altered states. One of you might be in an altered state right now. I'm talking, and you might be daydreaming, and that is an altered state of consciousness. So we've got daydreaming, we've got drowsiness, we have dreaming. How many of you love the REM sleep? All right, I call them pizza dreams. That is a dreaming state. Some of these states are spontaneous. All right, so spontaneous are daydreaming, drowsiness, dreaming. They just happen. They're spontaneous. Some of these states are physiologically induced, such as hallucinations, food or oxygen starvation. If you were a POW or you were out in the woods and you got lost and you were without food, water, for some reason you're without oxygen, you will have a physical reaction and it will put you in an altered state. Some of these altered states are psychologically induced, such as sensory deprivation. All right, what if you're here again, a prisoner of war, and they are doing some kind of a light? You're in a dark room and there's no light, and you have no sound, no light, no feeling, and that would be sensory deprivation. Hypnosis. Any of you ever been hypnotized? When I was a guidance counselor, we used to do, a guy would come and for, a way to earn money for student council, we would have this hypnosis night, and it used to be a lot of fun because some people can be hypnotized, some cannot, and what they would do was really quite funny, and we'd watch it the next morning on the television show. Medication, that can be a psychologically induced state. So the mind is what the brain does, and what we have actually are two minds, and we call this dual processing. Each one of these minds is supported by its own neural consciousness, neural equipment. The left brain is conscious, the right brain is intuitive. We are only really aware of what's on the surface. Most of the stuff is happening like off stage, okay? So, perception, memory, language, and attitudes all operate on two levels. We have a conscious, deliberate level. We use the word explicit, and you want to make sure that you understand that word. Explicit is deliberate. It's the high road. It's controlled. It's by choice. We use the word explicit a lot of times in this semester. And then the other one is unconscious, implicit. All right, so implicit is unconscious, explicit is deliberate, conscious. All right, so the unconscious, implicit is the low road. The low road, it's happening off stage, below the surface. So you have explicit, high road, implicit, low road. So what we've got is our two tracks, and these are the foundation of who we are, the two-track mind. So let's think about this, all right? So, because we have this ability to process things unconsciously, we have the ability to do more than one thing at the same time. That unconscious parallel processing frees your conscious mind to deal with new challenges. So, obviously this is an online class, so we're not driving anywhere, but I certainly know that myself, and I absolutely know that some of you have done this before, is you're driving along, you're on your way to school or work or whatever, and your mind just becomes so deep in thought that when you actually arrive at your destination, you're like, I don't even remember driving here. How did I get here? So your mind is on autopilot. So if you're driving the same route over and over again, you really don't need to think about it. Okay? It's kind of an unconscious ability, an automatic. You know exactly what's going on. And then it frees your mind up so that you can do other things, such as like change a radio station, think about how you're going to deal with your day, etc. So that is fascinating. So unconscious parallel processing frees your conscious mind to deal with new challenges. Now, here's a terminology I want you to know. It's called serial, and that's SERIAL, conscious processing. And this is also a parallel processing, but it's slower. It's slower than unconscious parallel processing. It is important to have because it makes you slow down your thinking so that you can solve new problems, do tasks that are, something that needs your absolute attention. Say you're using a chainsaw, all right? So you want to use your serial conscious processing when you're doing that because you're like, okay, I got to put all my attention on this task. So you absolutely have to do that. So if time is nature's way of keeping everything from happening at once, then consciousness is nature's way of keeping us from thinking and doing everything at once. Can you imagine having it all going on at one time? If you're a person who has ADHD or you may have autism, there's certain uh, disabilities, learning differences where everything seems to happen all at one time, and you have a hard time shifting through and focusing. Everything is just overwhelming, so it can be very difficult. So if you try to think yourself of everything coming at you at one time, it would be overwhelming. So what we have, here's another term that's very important: selective attention. And that is how much information can we consciously attend to at once. Okay? So, through this selective attention, what happens is your conscious awareness focuses like a beam of light on a very limited aspect of all that you experience. So, honestly, on a day-to-day basis, your five senses take in about 11 million bits of information a second. But we can really only consciously process 40. You use these other bits, but you can't consciously focus on them at one time. Okay, you just cannot do it. So, selective attention, you're driving along, you have the ability to drive and change the radio station, put the heat on, open the windows. You have that ability to focus on something else at the same time. And it's just selective attention. So here's some other little bits of information about selective attention. So we have one thing that we call, and you want to make sure you remember this, this is a typical test question. It's called the cocktail party effect. This is your ability to attend to only one voice among many. So if you're at a gathering and there's a lot of people and someone calls your name, even though everyone else is talking, you hear your name being called. All right? And if you're at the if you're a mom and you're at the grocery store and you can, everything's going on, but you hear your child calling to you, and you know it's them. This cocktail party effect is very cool. It's very cool. It will instantly bring that voice into consciousness. So, let's talk about selective attention and accidents, because we know that these days we not only are changing the radio station, but we're also talking on the phone and we are texting, which you should not be doing. Okay, all right, let me just say that. Let me be abundantly clear on that. Texting and driving is too difficult. We talk about selective attention, but it's one thing to be talking on the phone. That's already taking away some attention. But texting, it uses too much, and you can't. That's that serial conscious processing. You need to really focus on that, and you can't do it. So don't text and drive. What happens is you are 4 times as likely to get in an accident texting while driving versus talking on the phone while driving. And what happens is, of course, now I suppose you could use Siri to send a text, but nonetheless, you have to take your eyes off of the road. Whereas if you're talking on a Bluetooth or something, you can just still keep your conscious awareness about you. So it's right now the number one reason for deaths in the United States for teenagers, young adults. It used to be driving while intoxicated. Now it's driving while texting. It has surpassed driving and drinking. So that says something right there. 80% of traffic accidents are involved with some type of driver distraction, and certainly top on the list is related to phone use. Now, if you're driving along, what do you think? If you're driving along, what do you think is worse? Think about this. See, we're not in person, so I can't have this conversation with you. Maybe it would make a great discussion board. Something about texting and driving. Oh, giving me ideas. You're driving along and you have someone in the car with you and you're having a conversation with them. Or you're driving along and you're by yourself and you're talking on the phone. And so think about, what do you think is worse? Driving and talking on the phone, or driving and talking to a person next to you? Well, since I can't get your input, I just have to say that it is driving while talking on the phone, because if you're driving and a person is next to you, that's an extra set of eyes, an extra set of selective attention. And so a deer is going to run into the road. Even if you're yammering away, the person next to you may see it and you don't, and they would say, oh my God, look at the deer's in the road. And so you have an extra set of eyes. So that can even help you a lot. So whether you're talking on the phone or you have hands-free talking, it's still more of a distraction than having a passenger in the car with you. All right, so, and actually, a lot of people are getting in accidents while talking on the phone and walking. They fall off curbs, have accidents, trip over holes in the sidewalk, bumps in the sidewalk. It's ridiculous. So, we're now going to talk about, we just finished talking about selective attention. let's now talk about selective inattention. I'm going to have a video that you're going to watch after we finish the lecture component of this. So we're going to talk about selective inattention. So at a level of conscious awareness, we are blind. Okay, I'm putting little quotation marks around that. Blind to all but a small part of our sensory stimuli that's going on around us. So that involves focusing on a specific aspect of a scene while ignoring other aspects. Perhaps if you are into cars, you could go in a parking lot and it's filled with cars, but you could be blind to all the other cars because you see in the middle of the parking lot a red Maserati. So you're like, whoa, okay, you don't even see anything else around you. Say, this happens to me as a teacher, one person, they don't think that you can see them. And I'm not going to even go there. Sometimes people are doing some bizarre things and you're like, you don't even notice everything. I'm blind to everything else because I can't help but be drawn to what this person is doing. So just remember when you're sitting in the classroom that the teacher sees everything that you're doing. We're not blind to it, and we're going to focus in on something that's like totally bizarre. So that's going to get your initial attention. Okay? We think we've taken in the entire scene when in reality we focus on what we're attending to and we only have a general gist of the rest of the scene. Okay? All right? And we're going to call this inattentional blindness. Inattentional blindness. It's failing to see visual objects when our attention is directed elsewhere. Okay? All right? I'm going to have you watch a video on inattentional blindness, which also could be called selective inattention. Okay? Inattentional blindness or selective inattention. Those are the two terms that you may hear out in the real world. All right? So, now, moving on to another type of blindness, people also exhibit a blindness, again, quotation marks around it, towards change, and we call this change blindness. Change blindness. This is failing to notice changes in the environment. All right? You're going to see a video on this also. All right? So large changes within a visual scene are undetected by the view. Okay? So typically, for change blindness to occur, the change in the scene has to coincide with a visual disruption, such as eye movement or something being obscured from the observed scene or image. Now, this is, I think, is kind of an interesting thing. Very often you will be watching a movie, and in one scene, there's going to be, let's use a cake as an example, okay? In the scene, there's a cake, and a piece is taken out of the cake. In the next scene, the cake is there again, but it's a whole cake, okay? All right? You know what I'm talking about. Or you're watching a movie, and maybe a person is getting out of the right hand side of the car, and in the next scene they're getting out on the left hand side of the car, or there's a, you've seen these, but most of us never ever notice them. I have a son with autism, and he notices every single one. We'll be watching a movie, and he'll say, oh, did you see that? Did you see that? Play it back, play it back. And he'll see these changes, this change of blindness that you know, everyone else in the family does not see, but he sees every single one. Remember, we talked about how some people, everything comes at them, the stimuli. So I never see these changes in the environment because they're always editing. It's going from one scene to the next, and it would cost them so much money to edit it correctly that they don't bother doing it because they know that people won't see this. And of course, this can be very difficult because this is where, you're driving and there might be a change in the environment. All of a sudden, the deer's in the road or a man on a bicycle comes out, and you're so focused on the gist of the scene that you don't see that change in the environment, and that can be very distracting and cause accidents. So we're going to watch a little video clip about this also. So these are, this is the end of this first section of this chapter. So we're going to now watch a video on selective inattention, all right? We can call it inattentional blindness. And we're going to watch a video on change blindness. And then we'll start the next video, part 2. All right, thanks. Bye.